in a quiet Jerusalem street, hidden between a bakery and a small diamond shop, there is a modest study hall where people from every corner of the world come to seek advice from an old rabbi. He doesn't wear luxury watches or drive a new car. Yet those who sit before him, millionaires, entrepreneurs, and dreamers alike, all say the same thing. He taught me how to build something that never fails. They call him the Millionaire Rabbi, though he laughs at the title. A millionaire, he says, is not one who owns many things, but one who knows what can never be lost. His teachings are not about shortcuts or luck. They are rooted in the same wisdom that built generations of Jewish families who survived exile, famine, and persecution, and still managed to create wealth that lasted. Not merely financial wealth, but the kind that brings dignity, purpose, and blessing. One morning, a young man named Daniel arrived at the rabbi's study. He had lost his business, his confidence, and nearly his faith. "Rabbi," he said, "I did everything right. I worked hard. I studied the market. I followed trends, yet I lost everything. Tell me, what is the secret that I missed?" The rabbi smiled softly, pouring 2 cups of tea. "You missed what cannot be taught in business school," he said. "You missed the 4 infallible businesses, the ones that cannot collapse, no matter the economy. They are not registered in any market, but in heaven." Daniel frowned. "4 businesses? What are they?" The rabbi leaned closer. "Listen carefully. If you build these 4, you will never be poor again, not in money and not in spirit." That conversation became legend. Those who heard it said it changed not only their income, but the way they saw the world. Because the rabbi did not speak only of business. He spoke of the foundations of Jewish success, written in the very letters of the Torah. And now, you will hear those same secrets, not as theory, but as living principles, proven through centuries of Jewish wisdom and survival. Let's begin with the first. The rabbi began. "The first business, my son, is not about money at all. It is the trade of trust." He told Daniel the story of an old merchant in the city of Aleppo who sold fine fabrics. He had only a small stall in the market, but his reputation was worth more than gold. He never cheated, never exaggerated, and never hid a flaw. When asked why he priced his goods fairly, even when others charged double, he answered, "Because every lie is a debt that the soul must repay." The merchant's honesty spread through the market like perfume. People came from other towns just to buy from him. When a fire destroyed his shop one night, his neighbors wept, but within days they helped him rebuild. Why? Because they trusted him. Trust, the rabbi said, is the first currency of Jewish wealth. Our ancestors survived not by force, but by reputation. When others feared lending, Jews were trusted to handle gold, because our word was worth more than signatures. Daniel nodded. "So you're saying the first business is being honest?" The rabbi smiled. "Not merely honest, trustworthy. Honesty is what you say. Trustworthiness is who you are. You can say the truth and still not be trusted if your actions do not breathe truth." He explained that in Jewish tradition, emunah, faith, and ne'emanut, trustworthiness, share the same root. To have faith in God, he said, is to live so that others can have faith in you. That is the divine business. He paused, then added, "Every successful business is a reflection of this first one. The reason most businesses fail is not lack of skill or marketing, but loss of trust from customers, employees, or partners." Daniel asked, "How do I build this kind of business again?" The rabbi replied, "Start where you are. Deliver more than you promise. Speak less, do more. Keep your word even when it hurts. Let people say, if he said it, it's as good as done. That's when heaven invests in you." Then, almost as a whisper, he added, "Remember, God can bless only what is true." As Daniel listened, he felt something shift in his heart. For the first time in months, he saw that his failure had not been a curse, but an invitation to rebuild his foundation on trust. The rabbi poured another cup of tea and said, "Now that you know the first business, you are ready for the second, the one that multiplies what trust creates." He smiled, eyes glowing. "It's the business of service." The rabbi leaned back, his eyes reflecting both age and light. "Daniel," he said, If trust is the foundation, service is the structure. The second business is the trade of service, giving more value than is asked, because you serve not only the buyer, but the creator behind every human need. Daniel frowned slightly. Service? But Rabbi, that sounds too simple. Everyone serves someone in business, the old man smiled. Do they? Or do they sell convenience and call it service? True service, he continued, is not measured by speed or price. It is measured by presence, the attention and heart you bring to what you do. He stood and took from his shelf a small wooden box. Inside lay an ancient silver coin. This belonged to my grandfather, the rabbi said. He was a tailor in Warsaw. His customers were not rich, some paid late, some never paid at all. Yet every morning he would whisper before opening his shop, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, help me clothe your children with dignity today. That was his prayer. His hands stitched more than fabric. They stitched respect into every garment. Daniel's eyes softened. And what happened to him? He survived because he served. During the war, when others fled, his customers hid him. They said, This man dressed us with honor. We will protect him with honor. You see, the world pays back those who serve it sincerely. Service plants invisible seeds that no inflation can touch. The rabbi walked slowly across the room. When you serve deeply, you begin to resemble the source of all abundance. God does not sell sunlight or charge rent for breath. He gives endlessly. And every business that imitates him participates in his blessing. Daniel thought about his failed company, how he had chased numbers instead of people, efficiency instead of meaning. Maybe, he said quietly, I was serving my ambition, not my customer. The rabbi nodded. And ambition without compassion turns profit into poison. The Torah teaches, you shall not place a stumbling block before the blind. In business, this means never sell what harms, never profit from another's ignorance. To serve well is to elevate the buyer, not merely to satisfy him. He told a story about a grocer in the old city who once gave free bread to a hungry family. Years later, that boy returned as a successful importer and made the grocer his exclusive supplier. What he gave away came back multiplied, the rabbi said. That is the mathematics of heaven. Daniel smiled. So, to grow wealth, I should look for where I can serve more, not charge more? Yes, the rabbi said, but not out of guilt or charity. Do it because service connects you to purpose. The one who serves purely never runs out of work, because the world always hungers for care. He paused and looked straight at Daniel. Listen carefully. Service is not about lowering your price, but raising your standard. It is excellence married to compassion. It turns a customer into a disciple and work into worship. Daniel leaned forward. Work into worship? Of course, the rabbi said. In Hebrew, the word for work, avodah, is the same as the word for worship. The Jewish secret is that business is sacred when done with service in mind. Every act of service becomes a silent prayer that says, I am here to make the world better through what I do. He poured more tea. The silence between them carried meaning. Finally, the rabbi said, The one who trades in service never lacks blessings, but there is a higher trade still, one that multiplies service into legacy. Daniel looked puzzled. Higher than trust and service? The rabbi's eyes glimmered. Yes, the third infallible business is education. It is the trade of wisdom itself. He gestured to the bookshelf filled with worn holy texts. Everything you see here is the world's most profitable business, not in money, but in eternity. Those who teach, guide, and share knowledge create endless dividends. He smiled warmly. But that, my son, is a story of its own, and the one that made our people unbreakable. The rabbi placed a worn Torah scroll gently on the table. Daniel, he said, the third infallible business is education, the trade of wisdom. It is the business that no recession, no war, and no thief can destroy, because it deals in the only product that grows when shared, understanding. Daniel smiled. But Rabbi, not everyone can be a teacher. The old man shook his head slowly. That is where you are wrong. Every soul is a teacher. The question is not if you teach, but what you teach by the way you live. When you act with integrity, you teach integrity. When you panic, you teach fear. When you persist, you teach faith. The Jewish people have survived because we never stopped teaching, even in exile, even in silence. He leaned closer. Do you know why a Jew prays every morning? Teach me your ways, O Lord, because learning is the highest form of living. And teaching, passing on what you've learned, is the highest form of giving. He told Daniel a story about a poor scribe in Morocco named Eliyahu who copied holy texts by hand. He barely had enough coins to eat, the rabbi said, but he refused to write carelessly. He said, every letter carries the soul of a world. One day a merchant noticed his dedication and asked, why work so hard for so little profit? The scribe smiled. Because I am investing in eternity, my ink will dry but the wisdom will live. Years later, those same scrolls were used to teach hundreds of children after the war. Eliyahu's hands may have trembled from hunger, the rabbi continued, but his legacy fed generations. Daniel looked thoughtful. So, Rabbi, the third business is to share knowledge? Yes, the rabbi said, but not only knowledge, wisdom. Knowledge fills the mind, wisdom fills the soul. Knowledge tells you what something is. Wisdom tells you why it matters. He opened a small book of Proverbs and read aloud, wisdom is more precious than rubies. All you desire cannot compare with her. Solomon was the wealthiest man in the world, he added. Yet he said wisdom was richer still. Why? Because wisdom creates the ability to rebuild wealth even after loss. Daniel leaned forward. That's true, I lost my company, but I didn't lose what I learned. The rabbi's eyes lit up. Exactly. Then you are richer than before. Every experience, every failure, every success is tuition paid in the university of life. The wise turn their scars into schools. He told Daniel that in Jewish tradition, even God is called Hamelamed, the teacher. When you teach, he said, you imitate the divine. You participate in creation itself because every mind you awaken is a new world born. Daniel nodded slowly. Then maybe my purpose wasn't to build a company, but to build people. The rabbi smiled warmly. Now you are beginning to see the true business of life. He rose and pointed to the window, where sunlight painted golden stripes on the floor. When light passes through a window, it doesn't lose anything, it multiplies, so too with wisdom. The more you give, the brighter the world becomes. He paused. But remember, wisdom must be lived, not just spoken. The world listens less to your words and more to your walk. Daniel asked quietly, how can I start trading in wisdom? The rabbi said, start by teaching what you already know. Help one person, share one truth, explain one lesson you've lived. When you help another rise, heaven raises you too. That is the compound interest of wisdom. The old man's tone grew soft but firm. And if you build your life around wisdom, your business will never fail, because it will not depend on the market, but on meaning. Daniel sat silently, absorbing every word. For the first time, he understood why the Jewish people had remained prosperous through every generation. They invested not only in land or goods, but in learning. Their libraries were their vaults, their children, their most valuable assets. The rabbi poured one last cup of tea. Now, he said, we come to the most misunderstood business of all, the one that transforms every other, gratitude. Then with a soft smile, he added the gentle reminder required of all wise teachers. If you're enjoying this reflection, subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. He looked back at Daniel. Are you ready, he asked, to learn the business that turns gain into blessing? The rabbi's study fell into a deep, almost sacred silence. The afternoon light streamed through the old window, warming the worn books and his calm face. Daniel, he said softly, the fourth infallible business, the one that crowns all the others, is the trade of gratitude. Daniel tilted his head. Gratitude, as a business? The rabbi smiled. Indeed. Gratitude is the only trade where you gain by giving, where appreciation itself multiplies what you already have. It is the currency of the soul, the only wealth that cannot be taxed or stolen. He took a deep breath. In our tradition, every morning begins with two words, Modéani, I thank you. Before we open our eyes fully, before we touch our phones, before we count our coins, we count our blessings. Why? Because gratitude is the act of recognizing profit before the world sees it. Daniel listened, intrigued. But Rabbi, how does gratitude help a business? Ah, the rabbi said, because business is built on relationships, and relationships live on appreciation. Gratitude transforms transactions into connections, and connections into loyalty. The man who thanks his customers builds a family. The one who ignores them builds walls. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. A grateful heart attracts blessing. The Talmud says, "Whoever acknowledges the good that is done to him acknowledges the source of all good." When you thank people sincerely, you invite heaven to thank you with more. The rabbi then told a story. There was once a baker named Miriam in Budapest. She never had much money, but every loaf she baked carried her prayer. Whenever a customer bought bread, she'd say, "Thank you for letting me be part of your table tonight." Her shop never emptied, even in hard times. When others raised prices or cut corners, she added an extra roll for free, whispering, "For Shabbat with love." Decades later, her small bakery became an empire, but she still stood at the counter thanking each customer by name. And every person who met her swore that her bread tasted like hope. Daniel smiled. "So gratitude attracts success?" The rabbi nodded. "More than success, sustained success, because gratitude turns wealth into joy. Without it, riches become chains. With it, even little becomes abundance." He leaned forward. "You see, my son, a grateful person doesn't wait to receive to give thanks. He thanks before he receives, because gratitude is faith wearing a smile. It is saying, 'I already trust that good will come.' That faith opens the door for more." Daniel looked down, reflecting on his losses. "When I lost my company, I cursed God," he admitted quietly. "I thought I was finished." The rabbi's gaze was kind. "And yet you are here, learning, growing alive. You think your company failed, but perhaps heaven was making room for something purer. Gratitude doesn't mean denying pain, it means refusing to waste it. Every loss carries a hidden gift. Sometimes, the gift is wisdom itself." He poured 2 cups of tea again, slowly, deliberately. "Drink," he said. "And remember, every sip, every breath, every sunrise is a deposit into your spiritual account." Daniel smiled faintly. "I suppose I've been poor not because I lost money, but because I lost gratitude." "Exactly," said the rabbi. "Gratitude is the warehouse of joy. If you guard it, everything else returns in time." He continued, "That is why Jews bless God not only for the sweet, but for the bitter. When we say, 'Baruch Dayan ha-emet,' blessed is the true judge. Even at a funeral, we are practicing the business of gratitude. We invest our pain with trust that nothing is wasted in God's economy." Daniel leaned forward. "So, Rabbi, if I practice these 4 businesses, trust, service, wisdom, and gratitude, you're saying I'll never fail?" The rabbi's eyes softened. "Not that you'll never fall, my son, but that you'll never be broken. You may lose a company, but you'll never lose the capacity to rebuild. You may lose money, but never meaning. You'll always have work that matters, and peace that endures." He placed his hand gently on Daniel's shoulder. "The market rewards intelligence, heaven rewards gratitude. Combine the two, and you will have a fortune both can't measure." He stood, signaling that the lesson was complete. "Now," he said, "you have learned the 4 infallible businesses, but to master them, you must apply them, daily, humbly, faithfully." He smiled. "Tomorrow we'll speak of the secret that ties them all together, the divine partnership between man as work and God as blessing." The next morning, Daniel returned to the rabbi's study. The air smelled faintly of books, tea, and time itself. The rabbi greeted him warmly. "Ah, Daniel," he said, "today we speak of the hidden partner, the one who invests in every honest effort." Daniel smiled, taking his seat. "You mean God?" The rabbi nodded. "Yes, but not in the distant, abstract way people often imagine. I mean the living partnership between heaven and your hands. The Torah says, The Lord your God will bless you in all the work of your hands. Notice, not in your intentions, not in your dreams, but in your work. That means you must move first. The blessing follows motion. He poured tea for both of them. When you trust, serve, teach, and thank, those are the 4 businesses that prepare the contract. But unless you act, the signature of heaven remains unwritten. The Jewish secret of success is that we don't wait for miracles, we prepare for them. Daniel thought quietly. So I must do my part, even if I can't see how it will all work out? Exactly, said the rabbi. Faith is not a substitute for effort. It is effort with hope inside it. There is a story in the Talmud of a farmer who prayed for rain every day but never plowed his field. When the rains finally came, he ran to the rabbi and said, God answered too late. The rabbi replied, No, my son, you prayed too early. Daniel laughed softly. So God blesses the plow, not the pillow. The old man chuckled. Yes, and yet remember, it is not the plow that grows the seed, it is the invisible partnership. The soil, the rain, the sun, all beyond your control, respond to honest effort. That's why the wise call work a form of prayer. He paused, his eyes glinting. Our ancestors, scattered across the world, always worked with this awareness. God is my partner. The baker didn't just bake, he baked with blessing. The merchant didn't just sell, he sold with conscience. The teacher didn't just teach, he taught with faith. That awareness made every task sacred. Daniel nodded slowly. So business itself can be holy. Holiness, said the rabbi, is not found only in the synagogue. It's found wherever integrity meets effort. When you work honestly, you make God visible in the marketplace. He reached for an old notebook. Inside were handwritten lines in Hebrew. He read aloud, All that comes from heaven is good, but heaven blesses only vessels that are ready. He looked at Daniel. You must build the vessel. That vessel is your trust, your service, your wisdom, your gratitude. When those are strong, the blessing has somewhere to land. Daniel asked, And if I don't see results right away? The rabbi smiled kindly. Then wait without despair. The olive tree takes years before it bears fruit. But once it does, it gives oil for generations. Impatience is the tax the foolish pay to time. They sat in silence for a moment. Then the rabbi said, There is something else you must understand, the difference between earning and deserving. You can earn money through effort, but you deserve blessing through purpose. When your work serves others, you deserve more. When it only serves yourself, even what you earn slips away. Daniel sighed. I wish I had known that sooner. You do now, said the rabbi. The secret is to start small, it's but start. Each honest action is an invitation for blessing to flow. Heaven invests where there is movement. The rabbi's voice softened. In Hebrew, the word for blessing, beracha, comes from beresh, knee. To be blessed, one must bend. Humility attracts abundance because it admits there is room to receive. That is why Jews bow during prayer, not to shrink, but to make space for divine partnership. Daniel whispered, So humility is part of business too? The rabbi's eyes glowed. The greatest entrepreneurs I have met were humble enough to listen. To the market, to their conscience, to heaven, pride closes the ear that hears opportunity. He smiled gently. When you recognize God as your partner, fear loses its power, because then you know that failure cannot be final. If one door closes, your partner opens another. He lifted his tea and said, To the hidden partner. The one investor who never withdraws. Daniel raised his cup too, smiling. To the hidden partner. The rabbi nodded. Good. Now you are ready for the next truth, the spiritual audit that measures real wealth. It's not about how much you have, but how much you give without losing peace. He leaned closer, voice quiet but steady. Next, we'll speak of the true balance sheet, the divine accounting that determines who is truly rich. The rabbi unrolled a small parchment and placed it before Daniel. It was blank. This, he said, is the only balance sheet that matters, the one heaven reads. Daniel studied it curiously. But there's nothing written. Not yet, replied the rabbi. It's written by how you live. Every act of kindness, every temptation resisted, every word spoken with integrity. These are your credits. Every deceit, greed, or arrogance, your debts. The world counts coins, heaven counts character. Daniel looked thoughtful. So success isn't about accumulation? The rabbi smiled gently. Accumulation without alignment is poverty in disguise. In the book of Proverbs it says, "Better a little with righteousness than great income with injustice." The true rich man is not the one who owns more, but the one who needs less because his soul is full. He leaned forward. Do you know what the Hebrew word for wealth is? Daniel shook his head. Osher, said the rabbi. It shares the same letters as ashir, happiness. In our tongue you cannot separate wealth from joy. If your money costs your peace, it is too expensive. He told a story about a diamond dealer in Antwerp named Reuven, who refused to cheat a client even when he could have made a fortune. A friend told him, You're a fool. You could have earned double. Reuven replied, I already earned double. One payment in this world, one in the next. The rabbi chuckled. When he died, his ledger was found. At the bottom of every page, he had written a single line in Hebrew. Thank you, GD, that I never sold my soul for profit. That was his balance sheet. Daniel smiled faintly. That's beautiful. It's truth, said the rabbi. In our faith, wealth is measured not by how many servants you have, but by how many people you serve. The one who gives employment, dignity, education, or hope, he is the richest of all. He paused. And remember, generosity is not only for the rich. The widow who shares her last coin teaches heaven what abundance really means. Daniel looked down. I've always feared losing money again. The rabbi nodded slowly. Then make your money something that cannot be lost. Give part of it purpose. Use it to bless others. When you invest in people, you deposit into eternity. That is the only bank that never collapses. He reached for his tea. The Torah teaches that tzedakah, charity, comes from the word tzedek, meaning justice. Giving is not a favor to the poor, it is justice to your own soul. It keeps the flow of blessing moving. He leaned back. Do you know why Jews bless their wealth before counting it? Because blessing reminds you it's not really yours. You are the manager of divine resources, not their owner. Daniel nodded. So the balance sheet isn't about what I own, but what I manage. Yes, the rabbi said, you are a steward. The question heaven asks is not, how much did you make, but what did you make of what you had? The rabbi's eyes softened. I once asked a dying man if he had any regrets. He said, only one. I spent my life earning money, not meaning. Don't wait until your final audit to correct your numbers. The candle flickered between them. The silence that followed was filled with weight and peace. Daniel finally spoke. Rabbi, I think I understand now. Wealth without wisdom is debt. But when it's joined with trust, service, gratitude, and learning, it becomes blessing. The rabbi smiled, pleased. Good. You've grasped the heart of it. Yet there remains one more truth, the closing secret of all Jewish prosperity. Daniel leaned forward. Another one? Yes, said the rabbi. It is the law that governs all the others, the Sabbath of the soul, the business of rest. For no empire endures without balance, and no man prospers who forgets to stop. He glanced at the parchment, still blank, and said, We'll fill this together when you learn the value of what cannot be bought. The seventh morning came quiet and golden. Daniel entered the rabbi's study to find him standing by the window, watching the sunrise spill over the rooftops of Jerusalem. He didn't speak at first. He simply breathed in the stillness, the way a man listens to music before the first note is played. Rabbi, Daniel said softly, you promised to tell me the final secret, the last business. The rabbi turned, smiling with gentle light in his eyes. Yes, the final one is the most mysterious of all. It is the business of rest, the Sabbath of the soul. Daniel frowned slightly. Rest? How can rest be a business? The rabbi chuckled. Ah, my son, that's what the world has forgotten. The world runs faster each year, chasing time, losing peace. But the Sabbath teaches us the greatest economic principle of heaven. You earn more by trusting that not everything depends on you. He walked to the table and poured 2 cups of tea. 6 days you work, he said, but on the 7th, you stop. Not because work is bad, but because you must remember who truly sustains you. The Sabbath is a declaration of faith. The world can turn without my hands for one day. It is the most profitable pause in creation. Daniel sat curious. But Rabbi, in business, isn't constant action the key to success? The old man smiled. That is the illusion of Pharaoh, the ancient slave driver who made Israel believe they had to work without rest to prove their worth. But God freed us with one command: stop. Rest is not laziness, it's sovereignty over time. The man who can rest is richer than the man who never stops earning. He paused, gazing into his tea. In Hebrew, Shabbat comes from the root lashavet, to sit, to dwell, to settle. When you rest, you sit with God. You remember that your worth is not in your productivity but in your presence. Daniel nodded slowly. I've worked my whole life to build something that lasts. I never thought to stop and simply be. That, the rabbi said softly, is the disease of this age, the illusion that stillness is waste. But every orchard needs winter. Every field needs a season of silence. Without rest, even blessings die of exhaustion. He smiled faintly. The Sabbath is God's weekly reminder that He, not you, is the ultimate CEO. When you step back, He steps in. Daniel laughed lightly. That sounds like a good partnership. The rabbi nodded. Indeed. Many millionaires I've met failed not because they ran out of ideas, but because they ran out of peace. They forgot that profit without pause turns to poison. The true business of the Sabbath is to recharge your gratitude, renew your clarity, and remember your purpose. He told a story of a wealthy man in New York who once visited his teacher in Jerusalem. The man complained, Rabbi, I have no time for rest. No, my company needs me 7 days a week. The rabbi replied, Then you are not the owner. Your work owns you. The man was silent. That year, he began keeping the Sabbath. Within months, his profits rose, his family grew closer, and he said, For the first time, I feel free. The old rabbi looked at Daniel. Freedom is the highest profit, my son, and only rest reveals it. He continued, The Sabbath is not just a command, it's a covenant. When you stop working, you declare to heaven, I trust you more than my schedule, and heaven answers, then I will multiply your results. Daniel sat quietly, reflecting. So, Rabbi, the Sabbath is not time off from life, it's time within life. Exactly, said the rabbi. It is the breath between notes that makes the music beautiful. He reached for his notebook and drew a small circle. This is the symbol of Jewish success, wholeness, not endless growth but complete cycles. Trust gives you roots, service gives you fruit, wisdom gives you seeds, gratitude gives you sweetness, and rest gives you the soil where everything grows again. Daniel's eyes glistened. Then the 4 infallible businesses were never about money, were they? The rabbi smiled gently. No, my son. They were about mastery, of self, of purpose, of faith. Master those, and money will serve you, not enslave you. He closed his notebook, the candle flickering between them. Now you know the 4 infallible businesses, and the Sabbath that sustains them. Go, build your life with these. Trade in trust, serve with love, teach with humility, and live with gratitude, but always, always, rest in faith. The rabbi rose, extending his hand. That is the secret the world forgot, but you will remember. Daniel took his hand firmly. I will, Rabbi, and I'll teach it too. The rabbi smiled. Then the business of wisdom continues. As the story of the millionaire rabbi spread, people began to realize that success built only on money collapses, but success built on meaning endures. The 4 infallible businesses, trust, service, wisdom, and gratitude, were not formulas for wealth, but blueprints for wholeness. To trade in trust is to build unbreakable relationships. To serve is to invite divine partnership. To teach is to multiply your impact. To live in gratitude is to attract blessing. And to rest is to remain human. This is the Jewish secret no one told you, that prosperity is not a race, but a rhythm. The rhythm of work, generosity, learning, and faith, punctuated by sacred rest. True wealth is when your heart, your work, and your purpose move in harmony. If this message made sense to you, Subscribe to the channel, leave your comment, and share your opinion. What, in your life, is the one business you need to rebuild today?